Welcome to another episode of This Woman Works. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we will be finding out about a particular young lady that actually does some very, very great work. You're going to find out about that and more and her on this episode. Her name, that would be Destini Burns. Destini Burns, how are you doing?
I am doing phenomenal. Thank you. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you for coming on the show. We're going to find out more about you, your journey to where you currently are as well, and more on this episode of This Woman Works. I will say this again, I say that always in every episode because when we open up the show, we open it up with the Black Girl Magic moment. And in this episode, we will be talking about a phenomenal Black woman that is Miss Taraji P. Henson. Now, for those that aren't aware, if you look at Taraji P. Henson, you would never think that she's 53 years old. Her and Regina Hall are aging backwards. They just are aging back. Oh, throw Angela Bassett in there too. She's aging backwards as well. But of course, she's a DC native. She went to now. Fun fact for people that probably don't know, she went to North Carolina A&T and then transferred back home to Howard. I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't even know that, think she went all 4 years to Howard, and that's not the case. So, of course, the paper college, she worked mornings as a secretary at the Pentagon, and she also worked evenings as a singer and dancing waitress on a dinner cruise ship called the Spirit of Washington, which I'm very sure a lot of people don't know that. But, of course, she got her certification in acting so she can get paid for all the movies she gets in. I'm pretty sure all my actors and people know that. But her first prominent role was, of course, as Yvette in Baby Boy. Jody. I know everybody remember that. But that was quite entertaining and very much an introduction to Taraji P. Henson. But for those that don't know, she also did guest star in WB Smart Guy. She also was on House, guest starred on there, and CBS's CSI back in 2005, 2006, can't remember exactly. She also was Benjamin's mother in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which a lot of people are like, oh, really? Yes, she was. Also, of course, Think Like a Man, Think Like a Man 2. The Family That Prays. She played Sanaa Lathan's sister and Tyler Perry's character's wife, which he had like the throwed off wig that looked like he just grabbed him. Anyway, but yeah, she was his wife. She was also in I Can Do Bad All by Myself, smoking the cigarettes and walking up the stairs and almost electrocuting dude with the toaster. Hustle and Flow, of course, she has the iconic part of the movie where she sings the line, I'm not even going to sing it. I thought about it. Destiny, you got to unmute that mic so you can talk now.
I was mouthing it. She's saying, it's hard out here for a pimp. You got to say it like that too.
Yes, iconic movie. That was the first time her and Terrence Howard really, really worked together, which, I'm pretty sure that, he has memes out there that are being made now with him saying Maine. But because I'm pretty sure some folks appreciated him saying that, and some are like, nah, that ain't really how we do it. But anyway, of course, she was in Hidden Figures as well, and we cannot get off of the Black Girl Magic moment without talking about her most popular role. That would be Empire Cookie Lines. Man. She did not take any mess in that show. Now, there was actually going to be a spinoff. Fox had a production or a look deal with her. Unfortunately, it did not happen. Would have been good to see. Would have been interesting to find out her journey. But, of course, Empire didn't really end off with a bang. And, yeah, so that's basically what it was. But, yeah, I had to give props to Taraji P. Henson. On this episode, This Woman Works. She is the Black Girl Magic moment. Destiny, do you have anything you want to add?
I do. We can't forget that sis is also a mom, and she's an entrepreneur, and she has some great hair care products out there for Black women. that are super aesthetically pleasing in terms of the box. So got a shout out to that mom, that entrepreneur, and she's a single mom too. So definitely shout out that she's done all this stuff as a mother, and she has hair care products. So turn up for the Black entrepreneurship out here.
Right. And for those that didn't see her on the red carpet recently, you would never guess that she was 53. I just had to say that again. Sorry, I had to say it again.
It's all right.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, and she is 53, so she has a grown son. So I will not be missaying anything when it comes to Mr. Taraji P. Henson, because he might go find me. But moving on to the show, and of course, we got to talk about you, of course, but we can't find out about you until we find out where you actually started. So where did you grow up?
Wow. So I love this question. My dad was in the military. And so I actually grew up a few different places. I grew up in Missouri because we were stationed at an Air Force base in Missouri. And a bulk of my life, I grew up in a town outside of Cincinnati, maybe about 30, 45 minutes outside of Cincinnati, a very small, rural, very white town called Monroe. And so that is where I grew up, very country, very cow plop bingo, very, very Friday night lights. Yes.
Wow. They have one stoplight?
We have a few, more than one. So when I was there, we had... It might have been about 3 or 4, but now it's definitely more than one. We have an outlet mall now. We were known for Touchdown Jesus. So there was a big church there that had a Jesus, and his arms were up like this. And so we called him Touchdown Jesus. And we have a hustler. We had a hustler. So it's very controversial because Touchdown Jesus and the church was right down the street from the hustler. That was one of the top selling hustlers in the nation. So it's very interesting, small little country town that had, a good flea market. We had a good flea market, but we now have an outlet mall. So we're making waves.
Okay. All right. When I think about that hustler right down the street from Touchdown Jesus, I'm thinking of that message maybe on Sunday morning when the preacher's saying, we hustling to Jesus. But, but how was it growing up there, that small town?
It was very instrumental in, I think, who I am today. Being in the military, I never met strangers. Like my dad, we moved around so much. Most of us military children, we don't meet a stranger. I'm very great at networking even to this day because I can pick out little nuances of things about people that most can't pick out. And as military kids, you kind of had to do that. So when I moved to Monroe, my parents had just split up. They were about to get divorced. I was about 14. And Monroe used to be a part back in the day, and I'm sure many people maybe remember this in small town USA, but schools used to be kind of consolidated, right? And so right when we had moved to Monroe, our schools separated. And so it used to be a part of a larger system, and it was called Middletown Monroe. Middletown was more of the Black kids. Monroe was more white. Well, they split. And Monroe created their own school district. And so back then it was Lemon Monroe, and it was very small compared to where I was coming from. And I was one of 3 African-American students that graduated in 2005. There were 3 of us, and I still know all of them to this day. I mean, one too many of us, baby. Let's be clear. It was 3 of us who graduated in 2005 from Monroe High School. And so just by saying that alone, and if I go back a little bit to the last election when Trump was elected, there was a city right next to ours called Middletown, Ohio, deplorable and proud. J.D. Vance, who is the running mate for Trump, is actually from Middletown, Ohio. And so literally Middletown is 5-10 minutes away. That's where we used to hang out because that's where all the Black kids were. And so that just kind of gives you probably a glimpse into what it was like for me to grow up, because it was very deplorable, very proud. Yes. And so it was interesting. I had a very interesting childhood in Monroe growing up, but that was middle and high school. So my foundation was already set, and my parents didn't play about Black history, about knowing who I was, my culture, myself. And so by the time I got to Monroe, I was just kind of looking at kids like, okay, I don't have time for y'all, So I was student council president. I was on newspaper. I did show choir. I was a cheerleader. I played basketball. I was student council president for 3 out of 4 years in high school and 8th grade. And so, because I didn't play, I was like, oh, so since y'all want to be like this, anytime somebody comes to the school, I want them to see a black face. I might be the only one or one of the only one, but I want you to know that we are here and we're very intelligent and we have words to say. And so I did that.
Okay. All right. So it definitely sounds like the town you were in and that the circumstances that you were placed in helped mold you to who you were. But I also want to ask, growing up in that environment, you know, everyone always has something they want to be growing up. And it's that first thing you're like, oh, I want to be this. Like for me, I wanted to be a pro football player and then a sports agent. What did you first want to be growing up?
A lawyer.
Ah. So what sparked that one?
I like to argue. I'm very opinionated. Let me say that. I was very opinionated. I've always been like that. I've always liked to speak and advocate for myself. Like, I think between my mom and my dad, they used to, like, my mother used to make me write papers when I wanted to do stuff. So that just got me, and I love to read. And so in my mind, like just growing up and seeing different things, not understanding what injustice was at the time or what I was doing in terms of contributing to advocating for injustice. But I was the one that would start the petition at school if something was wrong. And usually it was because I was the black kid. And so something that they were trying to do, a rule or something, was unjust because of me or because of people who look like me. And so I was the main one. I started a petition my senior year because of my nose ring. I start like they would talk about my clothes because my clothes were shorter, even though everybody shopped at the same place. And so I didn't know at the time that we were talking about body image or, you know, how black girls' bodies were policed in comparison to, you know, white girls or other ethnicity. I didn't know that. All I knew was I felt like they were picking on me because, you know, my skirt that we both got at Abercrombie was just a little bit shorter because I had a little booty back there. And I didn't know that. And so at the time, I just wanted to advocate for people. And so I always told myself I wanted to be a defense lawyer by day, where I would do really high profile clients, but at night I would do pro bono work to help. Like I called myself, I wanted to be a lawyer to the hood. So in my mind, I wanted to work off a system of bartering because I knew that a lot of times people in disenfranchised communities didn't have money. I saw my friends who would go to juvenile or who would get locked up young because their parents didn't have money to afford a lawyer. They didn't have a house to mortgage or to put a lien on. And so I was like, I want to go to law school. I wanted to go to Howard. I wanted to go to a black law school. No, I wanted to go to Texas Southern so that I could go to law school. I wanted to go to Howard, like for undergrad, Texas Southern for law school, because I wanted to be a lawyer to the hood. And that was my kind of way in my mind at the time of being able to advocate for my people.
Okay. All right. So there was no LA Law watching. So I gathered that. But you know, of course, you know, Blair Underwood would be proud for that. But of course, it sounds, you know, definitely sounds like where you grew up definitely impacted who you are and what you're currently doing. But we're gonna get into that and what you're currently doing after this commercial break. We're gonna take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back on This Woman Works.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on This Woman Works. Now, of course, I explain this every episode, but I have fun doing it. People always ask, why do you have a beard commercial on a show about black women? Here's why. Fellas, I know you're listening, I know you're watching. So I'm talking to you. You know, we really don't take care of ourselves very well. You know, there's some things that we don't know about ourselves until we actually have a sister by our side or a woman by our side for some. But, you know, this commercial is for them because it's going to tell them something that we need that we probably don't know we need. Walking around here with scruffy beards, you know, your beard ain't moisturized, you know, you cutting people's faces when you hugging them, you know, so you know, for all the dads, the cousins, you know, the uncles, all that stuff like that, this is not for you. This is not for you. This is for
your spouse,
the women or that are in your lives to help you. There we go. That's what I wanted to say for that commercial. I have fun saying it every episode. It's fun. But going to the next part of this show, of course, we got to find out about your business. So, can you tell everyone what it is that you do?
Absolutely. So, I always like to tell people by day, I would say I'm the director of programmatic innovation for a nonprofit based in Nashville called the F.I.N.D Design. And F.I.N.D is an acronym that stands for Families in Need of Direction. And we are a nonprofit that serves Black girls and other girls of color between the ages of 11 to 17. And essentially what we do, without going in the whole mission, is we create safe spaces for Black girls and other girls of color in public spaces. So that could be your community centers, that could be your schools, that could be your colleges, that could be your churches, right? Any place that you see Black girls between the ages of 11 to 17, we want to make sure that they feel safe. And whatever that means, that's my day job. Now, my 24/7, 365 job is I am the chief momager to the Burns tribe. And essentially what that is just a momager is what it sounds like. It's a mom that is also their children's manager, which is not uncommon. There are plenty of people who have spouses as their managers and, you know, exes as their managers if you look at The Rock. But I am the chief momager. And what I do is I work with mothers as well as other parents to try to get them to cultivate that greatness that's what's in their children and to help them be advocates for their children, whether that's at school, whether that's in business, and really just encouraging parents to parent their children the way that they need to, but also to bring that wealth out of them and to bring that genius and greatness out of them. Because sometimes our kids don't necessarily get that cultivation in schools. And so as parents, sometimes we feel we'll advocate for our children if something is wrong, but I need to teach parents how to advocate that wealth and that genius out of their children. And we all can do it, but sometimes we just lose our way.
Okay. Whew, that was a lot to take in. And wow. But I've got to ask, you know, the F.I.N.D, we're going to start there. The F.I.N.D, how did you, when did you think of doing the F.I.N.D kind of full time? I know you can't say when you thought of being a momager full time, because we know that answer. But as far as the F.I.N.D design, when did you kind of think of doing this full time, or kind of, you know, this thought coming to your mind?
So the F.I.N.D Design was actually a nonprofit that was co-founded by two dynamic, super dope Black women from Michigan. How I got into the F.I.N.D Design as the director of programmatic innovation is, honestly, I want to say that the F.I.N.D Design found me. Let's just say that. Like, yes, I looked for the job and I assumed I had the qualifications, but it came at a time in my life when I felt, which a lot of Black women feel this, when Black women are coming from corporate spaces or public spaces that don't know how to cultivate their greatness or don't know how to make them feel safe and secure in the workplace, we feel imposter syndrome set in. We feel like we are not good enough, even though Black women are the most degreed in the world. And I will tell people that until the cows come home. We have the most degrees, y'all. But for whatever reason, when we get into these spaces, systematically and historical trauma will show that many of us are oppressed in the very spaces that we will contribute to and will almost give blood, sweat, and tears for, but they don't know how to cultivate our safety. And so when I found the F.I.N.D Design, or when the F.I.N.D Design found me and selected me to be their director of programs at the time, I was in a space where professionally I was very just downtrodden. And so, but they saw me, they saw my genius, they saw something that at the time I didn't even see. And so they poured into me, these two Black women who co-founded this nonprofit for Black girls, saw my inner Black girl and helped her heal. And so in the midst of that, I'm able at that time to then reach back and to heal my girls that I have. And I say all my girls, my babies that are in our program. And so it was very eye-opening, but really that happened around 2021. So post-pandemic, putting that in quotes, post-COVID, I needed a job and I saw that and was like, I think I can do this. This looks cool. And it was always something in me, again, advocacy. And from there, we've taken off.
Okay. All right. And now, Momager, I've got to ask, I know you're gonna take care of your babies, your for real babies, but
Yes.
How did it kind of come about for you kind of reaching out to other parents and trying to, I guess, bring the greatness up out of their kids? How did that kind of thought come into your mind?
The pandemic, 2020, honestly, 2020, everybody was at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was prepping myself. So I have 5 children. At the time I was married. So I have 5 children. And when I got pregnant with my son, who is 9, I thought he was my last, but he was not. My ex-husband at the time was like, I don't want him to go to public school. He was very adamant about that. And I was like, okay, and I didn't think anything about it. I don't want him to go to public school. By the time he gets to school, I want him to be homeschooled. And I was like, okay. I said, well, if we're homeschooling him, we're going to homeschool everybody else. So I'm preparing to homeschool. My son was 4 at the time. Pandemic hits. And I always, my running joke is like, I guess my ex-husband's prayers were so strong that when it was time for King to actually go into school, the world had to shut down to really show me that homeschooling was what we were supposed to do. And so we started homeschooling. Actually, I was prepping to homeschool prior to COVID. We were kind of supplementing already. And so homeschooling happened because COVID happened. And in MNPS, if you had a child in MNPS when COVID hit, parents were, first of all, parents all over the world, I think, were going crazy. They were trying to figure out what I do with these kids all day because they're in the house for 2 hours. I mean, what was that? Almost 2 years in Nashville that those babies were at home on computers, and the parents were going crazy. Like it was a thing. And so they were going crazy. And I remember thinking to myself, like, first of all, I've always wanted a big family. And we had a yours, mine, and our situation anyways when I was married. In total, we had 11 children. And so at one point we homeschooled all of them. When everybody came to live with us, we homeschooled all of them. And so I just remember watching my friends and just seeing, especially in our community, seeing almost like, it was like we were defeated. Like the very children that we birthed and brought into the world, we couldn't take them for 24 hours. And we didn't have no choice because this was COVID. So we couldn't send them nowhere. Daycares weren't really open. A lot of places weren't really, schools weren't open. And so I saw a lot of my friends be like, what in the world? And so back then I had started like I don't know that I would call it a podcast. I guess it was with one of my great, great friends. Her name is Nabaya. So we started this thing called Hope and Homeschooling. And every week we would go live and talk about homeschooling because she homeschooled as well. And we talked about homeschooling. We talked about gentle parenting. We talked about a child entrepreneurship, different curriculums. We had guests on the show. Like it became a thing. People were looking forward to, even if they didn't homeschool, the fact that they were kind of homeschooling because they have their children at home and they didn't know what to do with them. And so we were given activities and different things for them to do just to be able to kind of work with the fact that you have these beings that you created and now they're around you all the time. You can't ship them off to school. And so that was really kind of for me the time when I was like, wait a minute, like I don't want to say we need assistance, but as parents, especially as Black parents, I'm going to say it because I'm super Black and super proud. Like we are phenomenal and we are dope in many, many things, but systematically there have been, I believe, attacks on us as families, attacks on us as parents, attacks on us in terms of what we can do and how we show up in our community and the different ways we show up, even in relationship. And so to me, that's really kind of what spurred like, okay, I need to be a momager. Like I need to wrangle these children that I have, and I need to do it with some type of grace and ease. And then I need to show other people how to do it because our kids are brilliant. Like, don't get it twisted. Our kids are amazingly brilliant. Like they can graduate high school, get doctorates. I just saw a girl, she's 17 and has her doctorate in Chicago. Like they're prodigies, but we as parents have to build our confidence and change our paradigm so that we can help them And so if that's what I've been placed on this earth to do, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. All right. Now, of course, we all have that one moment where we're like, okay, I'm definitely where I'm supposed to be. What was that one moment for you?
That's a good one. I would say with fine design, I'll start there since we're skipping and hopping. With fine design, I think that one moment was when we were in group, because we have in-school groups. So we meet twice a week in school. We're not an after-school program. We meet twice a week in school. And I remember there was a breakthrough moment where one of our young ladies kind of shared some personal information about herself. And the whole group started crying. And it was about sexual abuse. And it was something that, honestly, a lot of, there's a term that we use in kind of the field of work that I do, and it's called adultification. And essentially, adultification is where usually it's with girls of color, specifically African-American girls, are not allowed to experience joy, right? They are automatically adultified, which just means that no matter what space they go in, they're given almost an adult role, a motherly role. And so along with this comes the cycle of abuse. So a lot of people hear about the school to prison pipeline, but there's an abuse to prison pipeline that many African-American girls experience. And the abuse to prison pipeline is, a lot of times they are abused, sometimes at home, most times with family members, because that's where a lot of abuse happens. That abuse manifests into different traumas. Clearly, they take those traumas into school, and then in school, all of these behaviors start to manifest. I'm fighting. There's drama. I'm withdrawn. Whatever the case may be, and then that's when the school to prison pipeline happens. But for Black girls, it usually starts outside of school. It's not school to prison. It's abuse to prison pipeline. And so, as one of our young students a few years ago started to divulge, and everybody started crying, and more girls in our group started to kind of explain what had happened to them, I realized, and I was there to be able to comfort and to be able to speak about my own situations that happened to me, and to give advice, and to just be there in that space. And I knew that I was in the right place, because our girls, if you see them, usually our girls are strong. You see Black women, you see Black girls. Our girls are strong. They are resilient. They will hold things until they can't hold them anymore. They're little prototypes of their parents, of women that you see walking around every day, probably that you've had on this show, right? And just imagine that, but at 11 or at 12 or at 15, right? And so once I saw that, I realized they trusted me, and I realized that was the space where I was supposed to be. As a mom, I knew that I was in the right space with Momager when my daughter, who we pulled out of school, she couldn't read, and I didn't know that. And I'm a very involved parent, but she couldn't read, and I did not know that. She memorized. She had us all. She memorized those books. And so I remember she was reading one day, and it was just so fluid. And I was just like, but then I realized she wasn't looking. The pandemic really made a lot of parents pay attention to their children in different ways. And so I remember I was watching her read one day, and she was just going so fast, and it sounded so cute, and she looked really cute reading, and most parents get caught up in that. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, she's not even looking at these words in this book. And again, I am an involved parent, like PTO. I'm there. I'm in everything. And I realized, oh, she can't read. And so I flipped to a random page and pointed to a sentence, and she couldn't read it. And so she had to flip back to try to because she had memorized it. And I said, can you read this? And that's when she kind of looked at me, and I was like, oh my goodness. And so I knew I was in the right space when I had been working with her by myself as a parent, and she could read. And I taught her how to read. And that for me was okay, Destini, you got this. You could do it. And then when I helped other people's children, then I realized, and when I started helping other people's parents, then I realized okay, I'm in the right space. This is my calling when it comes to my home, which is my first ministry.
Okay. Wow. That's an amazing story. Amazing story. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more of those stories out there in terms of, just parents across America. But of course, you happen to come on this podcast and give us that story, which I greatly appreciate you giving us that story. But, with any business, there's going to be some hardships and things like that as well. But we're going to find out about those after the commercial break. We're going to get into that with Destini Burns on This Woman Works.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on This Woman Works with your host, Mike Patton, and we have Miss Destini Burns on the show. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, not everything is sunshine and rainbows when it comes to any business. There's always going to be some points where you question or you think about, am I really doing the right thing? And I know, Destini, you've probably had that moment. So I ask, what moment probably is, that you can remember kind of was like, am I really in the right field? Am I really doing the right thing? What was that moment for you?
Oh, goodness. When I got laid off. So I got laid off from the F.I.N.D design, like last summer, 2 summers ago, I got laid off. The F.I.N design is a nonprofit. Most minority and women ran nonprofits are underfunded, or our causes aren't necessarily funded with what it was. No mismanagement of funds. Nobody was stealing anything. It's just one of the grants that we depended on did not come through. And that grant was a payroll grant, or we used some of it to pay our people. So, it started off with us all going into furlough, and then eventually we got laid off, and I was able, thankfully, to be retained on a contract basis until we were able to get some things together. And then obviously they brought me back on with a title change. But at that moment I said, it's nonprofit for me because I have mouths that need to be fed. But it was, what I will say is it taught me a valuable lesson about leaning on my skills, right? That's really when I started to develop my Momager business, is because I realized that nothing is definite. And I, like I said, was blessed to be able to come back on with the F.I.N design, after we got some things in order and some more of our grants started rolling in, and they rehired me immediately. But what I realized was as a people, though, when people talk about you need X amount of streams of income, like I just went to Invest Fest in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and Ian Dunlap, who is super dope. If nobody ever watched him, he's a part of the Earn Your Leisure crew, if you will. He's called the Master Investor, and that man said we need 24 streams of income. Now, when I was coming up, I heard 7, and I was like, "Ooh, okay, I got to get to 7." And then when he said 24 3 weeks ago, I said, "Oh," I said, "We got some work to do." I started texting my friends like, "Okay, y'all, we're gonna have to make these businesses together because this man just said we need 24." But in all seriousness, that really made me be a lot more intentional about, I need a side hustle. I need to constantly keep something up. And he also said something that was super profound. He said, and super shout out to Ian Dunlap. If y'all don't know him, please go follow him. He's super dope. He drops gems every Monday. But he said something about, essentially, he said, that doesn't mean quit your job, and he said that real quick. Because, people will be like, oh, I got to go out. He's like, no. He's like, that does not mean quit your job. You need to keep your job because that is one of your streams, right? And he was like, you want to keep that job until your other streams of income can replace that income. And he was like, don't just go out and say, Ian told me I need 24 and I got to be an entrepreneur. He was like, no. And so, but that was something that resonated with me, was as a person, I need multiple streams of income. I can't just depend on a 9 to 5, right? Because at any given moment, they will cut you like this and not think twice. and give you a little, and say, here's the severance, maybe, or not. And you are just out here trying to figure out like, well, I've been with this company for 10 years. I gave you all my intellectual property. I was there in the morning. I was there extra. I was there when you needed me to be. I was at the community events. I was here. And all of a sudden, within the blink of an eye, and sometimes not even thinking twice, they'll call you on a Zoom, or they'll say, hey, reduction in force. Hey, here's your severance. Hey, and you're over here like, what? I got to go home to mouths. And interestingly enough, the cycle usually happens where many big companies actually lay off right before the holidays. And that is usually a thing. It'll be like, sometimes it's in the middle, like right after, that first quarter has started in like June or July, and people are like redoing budgets. Election years always come with layoffs. And then usually layoffs happen right before the holiday season. And so that's leaving people over here like, I got a whole holiday, like everybody coming over my house this year, right? And so for me, that was a wake-up call that I was like, okay, Destini, you can't depend, no matter how great your job, no matter how much you love it, you have to have something on your own. And what was planted in you? What gifts do you have that you can now bring out and help someone else, but also cultivate some income for you and yours? And that's really what it started.
Okay. All right. So, you spoke of Ian Dunlap, and I do have to look him up, because I must admit I don't know everything he has said. So that gave me some homework. But what is some advice that you have received in the business that has kind of been very, very important in very, very I would say very, very important to your growth and where you are currently?
Someone told me, actually, it was a judge that's in Nashville, and she was kind of, mentoring me. And she told me one day, she said, Destini, you've been given the wand of time. And she was like, make sure that you never give it back. And what she was talking about was, there was a job that I had that I just knew I was perfect for this job. Like, I just knew it. Everybody knew it around the community. I had received an opportunity to like kind of be advanced in this job. And again, I had been let go. This was before the F.I.N.D design. And I was distraught. I mean, when I was distraught, I was distraught. I worked at the school district. I left the school district for this job. I was handpicked by a super dope Black woman to be her succession plan. So what I appreciate is that I've been blessed to have Black women around me who have seen something in me at times that I didn't see myself. And so this particular woman, I'm going to give her flowers. Her name is Alicia. And Alicia had handpicked me to be her successor. And so she had brought me into where she worked after the tornado of 2020 in North Nashville. And she was like pouring into me and cultivating me to kind of take over her job, because she told me, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but when I leave, I'm grooming you to take over my spot because you've got it. Right. And so I was like, okay, cool. So like she was teaching me the game, teaching me the ropes, teaching me how to do budgets, teaching me how to, get in the community, introducing me to people that I needed to know in the community. And so she had left, got another position, got an advancement. And so I was there, and I was primed, and I was ready. And she had even like set the stage for me. Okay. She was like, listen, she was like, she's ready to take over my spot. I've taught her everything. She's come to meetings with me, whole 9 yards. Well, as we all know, if something isn't ours, and when I mean something, I mean in our community, if we don't own it, then no matter how much we serve our community, no matter how much you could put a face on it, no matter how much work you do that is great and phenomenal, if we don't own it, y'all, it's not ours. And so as soon as Alicia left, they almost cleaned house and got rid of all of us. And I was distraught. And I remember I was so distraught. I had community members calling me like, is this for real? Like, did we hear correctly that they, and I was like, yeah. And so this particular judge said, hey, she said, I know this hurts. We all wanted you to be in that position. We knew you wanted to be in that position, but God has something better for you, clearly. And she said, but now you've been handed the wand of time. Don't ever give it back. And what she meant by that is I had poured so much into this position, but I was anxious and it made me nervous. And sometimes I was like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And it wasn't that good feeling when you've started something on your own and you're pouring something and growing your baby. I was really growing somebody else's baby, right?
Mhm.
And so at that point, it wasn't Alicia's baby, it wasn't my baby. It was this entity's baby that I was so anxious and nervous and feeling like, am I doing this right? And it was just, and I was doing that so much that I was forsaking my family and forsaking my relationship with my relationships. And when she told me that, she said, don't ever give that wand back. And what I took that to mean was, your time is important and what you pour into is important, but your time with your family and the things that matter most is also just as important. And when you move forward, don't ever be in a position again where you have to miss this thing over here because you got to go check into these people. And if it doesn't fit, and she kind of told me, like, I need to create like these are my standards. If this job or this career or whatever's next doesn't fit family time and church or, you know, whatever my non-negotiables are, then thank you, but no thank you. And I need to find something else. And so that has always stuck in my mind from when I've moved forward. After that, I had to get a job that was hybrid because I need to be there for my children. I needed to be a mother first. I needed to be a spouse first at the time. I needed to be a community member first. I couldn't give a job so much of myself that by the time I came home, I was depleted and my family got nothing. And so that's what I always remember. That was the advice that stuck out to me and still continues to stick out to me to this day.
Okay. All right. And what advice would you give to anyone that's, maybe trying to be a chief manager and director of program innovation, or, of course, maybe struggling and trying to, I guess, bring out the most in their children or child?
I think the best advice I can do is have grace with yourself. I use that statement, I think, have grace, when it comes to my director of programmatic innovation of F.I.N.D, when it comes to me being a mom. What I realize is for so many years, we've all, and I say we, people of color, have been sold this dream. And the dream that we've been sold is that we have to give all of ourselves, right? At one point in history, it was for protection, right? I had to do this thing so that this person over here could see that I'm doing this thing so that I wouldn't get in trouble, so that I could protect my family, so I could keep us safe. And so we gave so much of ourselves and overextended ourselves that some of us would die working for somebody else's dream. And we don't have grace with ourselves. So we end up being perfectionists. We end up having all these different ailments because we're going so hard, and there's nothing wrong with going hard. But y'all, we got to have grace. Like, this world is changing, it's evolving, it's moving. And if we don't have grace with ourselves, then we don't know how to extend grace to others. And then my other thing that I would say is we can't pour from an empty cup. None of us can. Black women, Black men, no one, right? And I specifically call us out because clearly I'm a Black woman. You are a Black man. Sometimes we will go and go and go and go and go and go and pour and give and give. And as men, you guys are protecting and protecting and providing and providing. And you're doing so much of that. And then at the end, if you don't have anyone or a source or a men's group or something to pour back into you, whether that's church, religion, a sporting event, something that could fill you back up, eventually you're going to be empty. And that emptiness can turn into anger or bitterness or frustration or sadness or depression or whatever. And so we cannot pour from empty cups. And so we have to find our tribe that can pour back into us, so that as we're pouring out, they're pouring in, and we're never empty. As a matter of fact, we can now pour from the overflow. We can give from the overflow because we're so full.
Okay. And the doors of the church are now open. Okay. All right. But yeah, definitely. Thank you, Destini, for those words and that advice. Hopefully people that are listening and tuning in have taken a lot from what you've talked about through your experiences and what you currently do and what you are currently doing as well as a momager and, chief manager and director of program innovation. But of course, we cannot end the show with just talking about, kind of your journey. We have to have a little fun, get everyone to get to know you outside of, kind of more the serious points and get more into the fun. We got 10 questions in the speed round.
Okay.
They're random questions. Everyone listening, Destini does not know any of these questions. So these are going to be the most off the top answers she's going to give us. Okay. Are you ready, Destini?
I think so.
All right. They're not that tough, but favorite movie?
Mulan.
Mulan, okay. That's no one. I hadn't heard that one yet. Okay. Favorite actress?
Whoo. Oh my gosh.
Now I've gotten 2 answers previously, but I'm gonna leave them. I'm not gonna say them, but
A
go ahead.
favorite actress.
Not from you, but from plenty of the guests.
Oh my goodness. I don't. Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, okay, that's a new one. Jumping Jack Flash was the joint though back then. Let's see. Who would play you in a biopic?
Oh, it's got to be somebody spicy. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Who would play me in a biopic? Probably Viola Davis.
Okay, all right. I was gonna say Amber Riley, but hey.
I could do Amber. I kind of like her. Yes. And she can sing. Let's go her. Okay, Amber Riley. I like that one. I like that one. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I just threw it off the top of my head. Hey. But favorite restaurant?
Oh, Cheesecake Factory.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Funny thing. I know some people probably gonna pull my black card, but I don't eat cheesecake. I don't like cheesecake.
Interestingly enough, I don't really either. I like cheesecake. I eat my dad's cheesecake. I'm very particular. My dad's cheesecake, my dad's peach cobbler. I don't eat cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. I just like their food.
Okay. All right. Worst movie of all time?
Oh, God. Oof.
I know there's got to be a movie you just like, why did I waste time even watching this movie?
That freaking movie with Samuel L. Jackson. It was like the movie where he had the girl tied up. Black Snake Moan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
It's
okay.
It's kind of a weird movie. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on somebody to give me Soul Plane as the answer for that one. But let's see.
Okay.
Favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, Mexico. I don't know. I really liked Puerto Rico. But I don't know. It's something about Mexico. I want to move there if I can. If I could be an expat, I'd move to Mexico. So Mexico for sure.
All right. Let's see. Best childhood memory.
Oh, man. Probably a family trip that my whole family, like cousins, everybody took to St. Louis. This was like back when I could barely ride rides. We all took a family trip to Six Flags. And for whatever reason, to me, I think it was the familyness. We did like a caravan. And so it was just like cars of us driving down to St. Louis. And we met up, I think, in Louisville because we were in Ohio. Some people were in Indiana. So definitely our family trip to Six Flags in St. Louis like years ago.
Okay. All right. Let's see. What is one thing that no one knows about you that people would be shocked to find out? It's a little bit of a family show now. It's a little bit of family.
It is. I'm not going to go there. We're not going to go there. Let's see. I have a really weird sense of humor. Like I'll laugh. Like if there's things that would make probably people cry, like I'll laugh. Look, I think it's a nervous thing, but I just have a really weird sense of humor and kind of sarcastic sense of humor.
Okay. All right. Who is the one person, dead or alive, you'd love to have dinner with and pick their brain?
Big Mama Thornton.
Okay. All right. I've not heard that one. That is a new one. That is a new one. Okay.
She lived her life authentically and out loud in a time when it probably definitely wasn't okay for her to. And I just feel like I'd love to just sit down and I feel like she'd be a hoot. And so we'd either laugh.
A lot of energy.
It'd be a lot of energy in that space, but I just feel like she would be interesting to talk to.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And let's see. The worst place you ever took a trip to? I know you got one that you're just like, oh, why did I go here?
I don't know. I mean, the worst place I probably ever took a trip to, I don't really know. Maybe the Poconos. I went to the Poconos once, and it was. I mean, I don't want to say it was the worst place, but it was cold, and I don't know. It was kind of boring. Like, there's not really anything to do around the Poconos outside of the resort, so you have to like kind of drive. So maybe the Poconos, but I don't know. I don't really take bad trips. I'm a planner, so.
Got you. Yeah, always gotta plan out the good trips, not the bad ones. And that is the end of the speed round. You're off the hot seat or that one. Okay, and we've reached the end of the show. So I want to thank you, Destiny, for coming on the show, telling us a little bit about you growing up, your current things that you're currently doing, and of course having a little fun in the speed round. If you can, tell everyone where they can find you on social media, where they can find anything that you're doing. Of course, I'm saying fine, like the fine design,
I know,
of
right?
course, as well. So, the floor is yours. You got it.
Thank you. So first, for anything Momager, homeschool, anything like that, that's Destini, which is just my name, how it's spelled, DESTINI_Burns Tribe. And that's on Instagram. And I think you can find me on TikTok there as well. So I do TikTok videos. And then F.I.N.D Design, literally F.I.N.D Design. F.I.N.D Design on Facebook, F.I.N.D Design on Instagram, F.I.N.D Design, FlyGirls_TN for TikTok. So we are on TikTok. The program is, but F.I.N.D Design is on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And you can find us in all those places. And please follow us. Like, follow, and subscribe. My daughter said to say that. I don't know if that's still relevant, but I'm supposed to say it.
Well, I will say this. I'll break down the like, follow, and subscribe in 1 second. Of course, my name is Mike Patton. I am the host of This Woman Works. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Shout outs to Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, the little connection there. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. Of course, This Woman Works you can find on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and follow there. And, click the little bell so that way you get every little update every time a show pops off. And you can also find This Woman Works on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music /Audible, Apple Podcasts. Yes, you can find them on all those different. Oh, I'm sorry, in iHeartRadio. If I didn't say that, I might have already said it again. Anyway, you can find it there as well. I want to thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Destiny, for coming on to this episode. We're out. We're done. Next episode next week. Tune in. You might see somebody you know. Peace.